Welcome everybody out there. Mashal, thank you for joining in. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Are you in Dubai or you're in US?
I'm in Long Island in New York.
Oh, okay. So I'm actually shifting home, and there's a lot of noise around, but we got to do what we got to do. Before we begin, the first thing that I would suggest you to do is you can also stream this to your audience. So there is a button called stream this to your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Hold on. I gotta change I think I'm logged in from the oh wait, let's see. Let's try this.
Let's see.
Yep, there we go.
Everybody joining in, just hold on a bit because I perhaps think that this is one of the most interesting topics because there was a time when we all were talking about grants, but then it just died out completely, right? Nobody speaks about grants any longer. So let's find out from Mashal in some time that what this really is. So Mashal, thank you for sharing this on your X. You can also share this on your LinkedIn if you wish. And the idea of this conversation that we do every day at Aura 8 is to talk about the future of money because the world is moving at a speed that perhaps human life has never seen it earlier. I know a lot of people tell me, when we moved from typewriters to computers, we did see that. When we moved from horse to cars, we again saw a similar disruption. But I personally feel that this particular disruption is nothing like the world has ever seen before, because earlier you did have machines doing your work, but you now the work that perhaps we could never imagine is being done by AI. Mashal, welcome to Aura 8. This is where we talk about the future of money. First, tell us what have you been doing these whiles, and tell us a little more about yourself.
Absolutely. So I'm Mashal. I'm the CMO at Octant. I lead marketing, growth, and operationally running the grants team here. A little bit about me. I used to be a media founder. So I co-founded a company called The Tempest in 2016. Yeah, media was my life for 6 years. Got into crypto as a Bitcoin maxi actually in 2016 as well. We were giving workshops with a friend of mine, teaching people about the beauty of decentralization and banking the unbanked essentially in Dubai, as a matter of fact, back in that time. So this was 2015 and 2016. And then was a serial entrepreneur for quite a bit. Got back into crypto with NFTs and DAOs, which I thought were like the best thing to happen to the world. And that led me to the world of grants. So I co-authored the State of Web3 Grants Report in 2023. And that's when I joined Octant as well. And I had gotten into the grant space because there was so much of funding that was that I would hear about all the time. It's like, this much capital being deployed in this big of a grants program. And it felt like there was this abundance of capital. And there was over $5 billion in grants funding that went out between 2021 to 2024. But there had been no research done on it. And I had done a couple of case studies on Quadratic Funding and covered Gitcoin's funding rounds. But I really started taking a deeper dive in in those years, trying to understand and make sense of what this space really was. And that's how I got deeper and deeper, becoming a grants nerd. Joined Octant right after their first funding round had happened, and their funding rounds are called epochs. To date, we have had 13 funding rounds. We're actually in the middle of our most recent funding round, which ends on 30th of June. I anything about grants and impact and public goods, I have probably been thinking about deeply. That's what a lot of my brain power has gone into. And I am a writer at heart. I love marketing. I enjoy content so much. I know people are chronically online. And I am very proud to be chronically online because I love content and I love human connection and just seeing the beauty of what people can come up with when it comes to anything online. So that's a little bit about me.
Which is your favorite meme of late on the internet?
It has to be there's this girl looking back with the house on fire. You know the
Oh
little
yeah.
that's one of my favorite ones.
Evil. In fact, I was actually I was very recently diagnosed with chronic ADHD, and so what I do is uh, I've actually gone in detail of that meme, and that girl is all grown up now.
Is she really?
She's all grown up now. Apparently, that picture was taken by her father. She wanted to just take the neighbor's house that wasn't being actually burned by chance. It was being burned by choice because they wanted to raise down the house.
Oh, okay.
And that is when that picture was taken.
Who knew? All these years later, it'd still be making rounds. I actually saw it on another tweet today, and that photo is gold. So
Yeah, absolutely. Let's
what's your
let's
favorite
talk
meme?
about my favorite meme. I think it keeps changing. There are so many that are happening of late, but I think with crypto, I would say it is about have you seen that guy who's just moving ahead and back kind of a thing? I think that is my by far the favorite thing. But let's talk
Actually,
about, yeah.
yeah.
Tell me.
I was gonna say I have another favorite meme too, which is the dog on with like the room on fire. Um,
One
you know the
second.
little the I'm forgetting which character it was, but it's basically this is fine, and he's in a room full of fire, and he's just like, yeah, this is fine. So that's my other favorite one.
Nice, nice. One second. Let's talk about what is quadratic funding, and it was sold for greater equalizer for public goods after years of Gitcoin rounds and experiments like Octane. Do you think it mostly delivers on its promise, or it largely amplified its existence? What do you think about that?
I mean, I think it was when it was introduced. Where did Web go? Well, this is. I guess I'll just wait for him to join us.
No, I can hear you. The stage is
Oh,
yours. Go ahead.
oh, okay, all right. I was like, wait, where did you go? All right. So I think when it was introduced, it was interesting because I feel like there was a lot of thought that went into obviously coming up with the actual formula and with the concept of democratic decision making through smaller pools of capital helping decide where bigger pools of capital are going to be split up and how they're going to be distributed. What a lot of people don't know is that a lot of times the actual formula, which has been technical, was amplified so that the proper matching pool would fully be spent out. Every single variation before this current epoch that we've seen of quadratic funding has been through that. It has been democratic. I think it's been interesting. But on the flip side, I mean, with the current epoch that we have coming up and that's been running since last week, that's been the most proper, probably, implementation of it, just because the alpha is not amplified, and this is going to be as close to democratic as it can be in terms of proper individuals and just individual contributions being considered. Has it been successful? I guess it's a matter of perspective. Like we've seen so many really good implementations from Gitcoin as well back in the day with American Cancer Society, with the UNICEF rounds, and with all of the impactful rounds that would happen. back at that time. I do think that with quadratic funding, though, one of the most important aspects is who are the projects participating and how closely have they been filtered and curated? Because if it's not that, and if you have hundreds of projects participating, what you've essentially created is a popularity contest, because a lot of times it's not going to be the most deserving projects that get funding. It's going to be the ones that are most visible or that have had the most visibility to the contributors and who can rally up. I think there is another component to this as well, which is who can get the most amount of community and decision makers to take that action. And especially now when attention is so divided and scarce and split up, and it's really tough to get people to do anything. And I think if you're a marketer, that's another thing that is it's really tough to get anybody to take any action at all. And so I think like it is broken. I think there's ways to do it better. I think filtering the project so who is getting funded, what they're going to do, and bringing accountability, I think that brings us closer, if anything, so that no matter how the voting goes, it's going to a good project. I think if you've done that filtration, then you're in a good place and it can work. But as a grants specific, like from a grants perspective, I think direct grants are sometimes more effective than community grants. And I say that with the caveat that, like, having seen all of these funding rounds come out, I've just like, we've seen direct funding go out. We've seen community funding too. And I think streaming and direct funding are probably the best implementations of this. Oh, you're muted.
Noob mistake. I was saying back in the day, I think ICP had an amazing grants program. They had $250 million for projects and $250 million for community. And I was like blown away. I'm like, wow. And then I realized, oh, there's a catch here. If you are building a project, you have to go to their devs because they have a specific language, which the others can't build on. And I think grants are important, and it's a fantastic way for people to grow. Governments give out grants, foundations give out grants, but don't you think grants are kind of a black hole in terms of the common narrative now? Because in this criticism, mostly fair at some point, or do you think we are holding the Web3 grants to a higher and sometimes unfair standard comparison to standard philanthropy or VC funding?
Well, I think like VC funding is very different, right? When you invest as a VC, you're looking for that 100x return, and you are going to have a very specific mentality and mindset around wanting results, wanting to see distribution, wanting to see a return, and you make money when that project then essentially gets more funding, right? And follow-on rounds. So that's a very specific model, and I think that model can work. But I think with grants, so where the industry was a couple of years ago to where we're at now are very different. I think when we started off, grants were used as a marketing tool, exactly what you said. There's firstly, also, I think there's very few things as free money, okay? Unless it's fully philanthropic, like I think there's going to be some version of what the funders are trying to see. And you may not always understand what that is. But with grants funding, initially it was purely as a marketing exercise and to get more developer activity. I think from that point onwards, and it was a lot easier to get grants. Like you had a lot of grant farmers too, right? Like you could say, hey, I have this idea, I can do this, and you would get funding, or at least a small amount. And then when I did my research, like I saw so much funding that went to projects that I was questioning why. Like, why did so many projects get so much funding? And the problem was there was a surplus of funding that existed. You had to give it out. The teams giving them out were under-resourced, and it was too early as well. So because I'm running a program, my competitor is going to think we should be running a program too. Why don't we have a grants program? So everyone thinks it's working and everyone's giving out this funding. A couple of years later now, it's been a bear market. Funding is not in abundance. And so the kind of grants that are being given out now are very different. They're very specific. They want to see results. They want to see distribution. It's not just about, hey, can you build a thing? It's what can that thing that you're building bring back in terms of value to our ecosystem? And is this going to bring traction? Because that's the stage of advancement we're in. You're not going to see educational and community grants as much anymore. There's barely any that exist. What you're going to see are way more specific asks for what the projects want to see. They want to see success. They want to see traction. They want to see, has this team done this before, right? So I think it's tougher for builders to get funding right now. And then the other part is it's so much easier to build stuff. Anyone can build anything at this point, right? Obviously, there's a security aspect to it, but in general, because of a lot of these tools making it easier to build stuff, it's about distribution now. So you're not building for the most technical thing, you are building more for the distribution side. And I think that's the biggest difference that I've noticed. When I was on the Polygon board, I mean, one thing that we would pay a lot of attention to is what's going to bring distribution to the ecosystem. And that was something that the board collectively would think about as well. And I think a lot of grants programs also switched to this almost hybrid model where they're going to run accelerators and they're not just going to give grants. It's going to be a little bit of grants funding. But the real thing is they want to see, can this team deliver? And if yes, then they want to invest in them and they want to see them building in their ecosystem. So I think we're seeing a lot more thought bringing exactly what you said. There is going to be like a lot more specifics that teams want and that they're looking for. And the industry's grown up. We're more sophisticated now in what our asks are. So this is just a natural evolution of that. But I think that's where we're at. And at Octant, like we've run the community grants models. We've done micro grants and community and creator grants as well, for very specific initiatives and campaigns. And it depends on what your end goal is in ecosystem. Like for us, seeing Ethereum thrive was important. And so our community, component had that community angle. For direct grants, though, it was very specifically for marketing and growth because that's what we wanted to see success in. That's what we wanted to do a bunch of tests in. And those are what worked for us. So I think with every team, it really just depends on what you're working on. And this is why you see a lot more incubators. Like Inc., for example, is running a program right now. Before this, Uniswap was running a very specific DeFi accelerator for DeFi founders who are building on Uniswap. So every ecosystem has become very specific with what even kind of builders, which is the way to go. You can't keep things vague. You have to be specific. And the more specific you are, the better chances of success you have at seeing the kind of end outcomes and results that you want to see. Oh, you're muted again.
I've been seeing how the market is moving now because, back in the day, if you had a good MVP and you had a decent team, there was a good chance that you would get funding for doing what you are doing. I was just attending the YC demo day and I was shocked that people who are generating $15 million revenue, $6 million revenue are now looking for funding. Back in the day, this wasn't a conversation, right? They didn't have a conversation about, are you generating revenue? The times have changed. Do you see that has also changed in Web3? Because Web3 as an entire narrative that we were pushing for the last decade has been fizzling out with agentic AI. We say that, every agentic AI needs a crypto wallet to do your transaction and stuff. But with OpenAI and Visa coming into play, that's a different ball game, right? So wherever we talk about crypto, we are kind of losing that hunch. And today I was talking to a VC and an angel in Vesta and a very seasoned guy in Web3, and he says, people like me, we don't even know really what's happening in the broader market. We are invested in Bitcoin and we're just kind of focusing on that. What is your take on this? And also, do you think the big foundations and treasuries stop the grants proactively almost entirely and move to retroactive public goods funding? Is it still a strong case, or it's like proactive funding? What is your take on that?
I don't think public goods public goods funding is mostly right out. So who's giving those grants right now, right? I think that funding is minimal, if at all. And every project, I mean, unless you are specifically being funded by a foundation, and even foundations, like there was a reason for having foundations, which was a lot of legal reasons, right? You had to have a foundation structure, you had to have a lab structure. With a foundation, there was a very specific way you could give out capital. There's been more regulatory clarity which is why there's been the case for dissolving foundations and moving to just a lab structure now. And I think that's one of the reasons why you're seeing some of the shutdowns now, not in every case, but of course that's been the case for some of the organizations. And that's why we're seeing some of these foundations dissolve. On the flip side, I think when it comes to and when it comes to VC funding, like, yeah, it is tough to raise right now. Founders are struggling, but I think it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, one of the things that I've been hearing from a bunch of founders is, like, when they're meeting VCs want to see results. They want to see traction. They want to see success stories, and they want to invest once they've seen traction already. And I think this is sort of happening across the board. And I think when it comes to crypto VCs, like, what are the actual innovations happening? I think that's something that they're actually thinking about too. Because if everyone's doing agentic AI, one, what are the success stories there? Like, even the Visa teams and whatever, yes, you've got the big players coming in, but what is the traction that they're seeing? And I think there is a little bit of an overhype in terms of what the reality is versus what the narrative is, if you look at the actual numbers, right? So even with the bigger players coming in, yes, we might be there in a couple of years. I don't think we're there right now. And I think we're in a little bit of a bubble is what my take is, because I think we've overhyped everything in our bubble, and it feels like this
Someone at last is speaking the truth here, Mashal. Your name signifies it, right, Mashal? Let me tell you this, that I don't know if you know this guy called Nikhil Kamath. He's an Indian billionaire. He's a homie to me. And his chief of staff, her name was Kudrat. So when I was speaking to her, I'm like, what a beautiful name, Kudrat. If I ever have a female child, I will name her Kudrat.
That's a
And I
beautiful
did
name.
that. And I did that. So just in case, if I ever have another female child, I'm going to name her Mashal, because it is not just a beautiful name, but it means a lot, right? For all the guys watching out there, Mashal in Hindi and Urdu means torch of fire. Not
Yes,
not your
the
regular
thing
torch.
that holds the fire. Yes, and it's actually rooted in Farsi, because Urdu is a mix of yeah. And it has the same name in Arabic as well. So the Arabic way of saying it is mashal with the ain. Yeah.
Okay.
But yes, that is what it means. You are
Because
absolutely
it's a beautiful name, and there are very few names that actually have a very strong meaning, and they connect with people, right? So
right. Oh,
I'm giving you this commitment
thank
that
you.
if I ever have a girl child, I will name her Mashal.
We religiously, we have a really, at least in my culture, and I'm sure in yours too, names have such a big
Yeah.
like influence on your personality. And we actually say, if a child is sick, well, when if a baby's really young and they're sick, and one of the, people have varying beliefs on this, but a belief is that the name doesn't suit them, so you have to change the name. And I've actually had friends who've changed their names, some of them in their adult life, and some, the parents changed the kid's name because they felt like it didn't suit the kid. And so I actually do believe that names have quite a significant meaning and influence, and they do make a difference.
Absolutely, Mashal. Why do you think I have a double V next to my first name?
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. What does your name mean, actually? I have no idea.
I'll tell you. My name means so Vaibhav means grandeur, and like the beauty of life, which is authentic name, Hindu name from India. And Ali, we know what Ali means.
Right. Yeah. No, that's amazing.
Okay. My next question to you is: has Ethereum's heavy emphasis on public goods funding become a distraction from shipping critical infrastructure, security, and scaling, or it is actually one of the most important things that the ecosystem has done? What's your take? What's your
Well,
take on this?
you're asking me questions that are like that. I don't know why I'm getting all these spicy questions, but I don't know if I don't think if they're I actually don't know if the EF even calls Ethereum. Like, I don't think they say they have a public goods focus. I would say I think they have been focused on neutrality, most importantly, And with their new mandate as well, they have a huge crops focus, which is censorship resistance, open source, privacy, and that's sort of been their bigger focus. And I've, everyone has a lot of thoughts on the EF, right? Like, I'm sure I could say a lot of things that are critical, but I think at the end of the day, I do think there's been a bearish sentiment in Ethereum, but I think this is going to change, and here's why. I think there's a lot of things that are at play behind the scenes that we're going to hear about very soon. In fact, we're actually going to see a pretty big announcement today in a matter of time as well. There's going to be a couple of others, and they're going to be net positive for Ethereum because Ethereum is not just the EF, right? It's all of us who are different players playing their roles in the ecosystem. And we can, one of the reasons why I've been in this ecosystem is because I liked Ethereum values. I liked what Ethereum stood for and stands for, and I believe in that. And I don't think the Ethereum Foundation is going to tell me what this ecosystem is. Like, I think we can define the culture and what it means, and I like that a lot. And I don't even think they want that mantle of wanting to decide. They have this subtraction philosophy, which I have a lot of thoughts on too, but that's neither here nor there. But as a player in the ecosystem, I think we get to define what Ethereum values are. I think there was this perception of, Ethereum doesn't want to grow in the way that others are growing aggressively. Like, every culture, like the Solana ecosystem, is a very clear structure. You kind of understand that they mean business when it comes to, how they move and how they talk and communicate about like how their ecosystem, right? I think Ethereum has a very different philosophy in how they do things, but I do think we're going to start seeing players that are aggressive and wanting to see like Ethereum being the standout. And you already see it with like Bitmine and SharpLink and the Tom Lees and the people that are taking the mantle for wanting to see Ethereum grow aggressively as well. And I think that's a net positive for the Ethereum ecosystem because I think we now are going to see people that have the relevant experience and background and can and will be able to have the same conversations on the stages and in the presence where I feel like Ethereum was missing in the past. And I've been in a lot of these rooms, right, where you have people and I feel like critical Ethereum voices were missing. I think that's going to start changing. It's already been changing slowly over the last couple of months, but we're going to see a lot more of it with more decentralized approaches with different organizations taking that mantle and being leaders. And I think that's where we're heading. And whether public goods, I mean, normally in traditional structures, like governments have public goods. I think what I've seen and what we saw in a lot of conversations when we were looking at would other organizations want to fund projects sustainably, that was the whole concept with how Octant V2 and the vaults were initially made was like, people wanting to support things sustainably. But what you realize is that a lot of times, sometimes maybe it's the timing that's wrong, but what I realize is like, you need to make the business sense for why anyone should fund something. I think the Octant approach was different in that, value based, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But for a lot of organizations, it's like, you need to really make the case for why they should be contributing financially as well. And I think that's been the other case. And I don't think the EF has also been like, they've been cutting down on their funding. Every single announcement they've made, they're cutting down, and that's been their mandate, right? So I think what people thought they were versus what they're doing are two different things. It's not kumbaya moments anymore. If that was the perception before. And I think things are changing in Ethereum. And I'm like long-term ETH bullish. And I think that I love the Solana ecosystem. I love what they stand for, but I really appreciate everything that we've built up here in the Ethereum space too. And I think seeing a lot of these positive things come out, like that's encouraging. I know a lot of people are feeling bearish, but I think that will change. And for my sake, I hope it changes because I don't want to see Ethereum,
a lot of us actually. In fact, I was just a couple of weeks ago, I had some miners come in, and apparently the entire miner community is still upset with Ethereum, right? And they still believe that uh, in the direction of trying to do good towards the mother earth, and trying to cut down mining and moving to nodes, they believe that it'll done more harm than good. But with the long term vision, I think that a short term problem, like people might not even recognize it, like in the next 3 years, if Ethereum hits $10,000, nobody is going to really remember this time that we are in. And
I
and
hope your
judging
words
and
become a
judging by
reality.
your smile, you have a big bag of Ethereum.
I hope we see Ethereum get to $10,000 because
Inshallah.
a lot of our grantees we give grants in ETH. So the value of ETH going up will mean that a lot of projects that are so impactful doing good work, it means their funding goes higher and it makes a bigger difference. So yeah, of course I have exposure to ETH, but I don't remember the last time I looked at the price for ETH unless I'm converting for projects so they understand what amount there is. I wish I looked at prices because then I wouldn't have so much ARB and OP actually, and I would have,
I
I will
think
always regret not looking at prices, but that's just not. I mean, yeah, I'm not a trader. I don't know what the price is usually for the most part, and
if
yeah.
if I wasn't creating content on CMC, I would have never ever opened CMC. I do not want to look at the pricing because it is really painful, right? And glad that I wasn't involved a lot with altcoins.
Oh my
Uh,
god, yeah, people have gotten wrecked.
yeah, absolutely. Because I think all the altcoins was an asymmetric bet, right? And the crazy pump.fun days, which actually was nothing else but a pure casino.
Yeah.
And everybody went out there and they either created their token or they try to game the system. But then the beauty of the system is that you can never game the system. You think you have gamed it once, but the
I
house
think
always wins.
so.
Yeah.
I got to play. I got to play blackjack for the first time in my life during Consensus Miami. It was this event organized by a few different organizations, and I had never actually been to a casino at that point. So this was my first time playing, and this is how I realized that I should not be allowed to gamble because I will go all in. And I think it's this belief, right, that people have where they think they can make it all back or they have a few good bets, but what they don't realize is how much of even how tokens are pumped. There is so many there's such a darker side to this industry and so many things happening behind the scenes that you will never understand and know. And even if you have access to a few, there's a lot more things at play. And so I it is 100% gambling. This is why a lot of people have lost money. And I think, um, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of projects have also rugged their communities, and then there's a lot of stuff happening. And I think there's a lot of misinformation that also comes into play. But I agree. I think there was a limit to how much meme coins would work and how much would happen. I think a lot of people have, yeah, bet on them. I'm not a fan of, as you can tell.
And just in case, if there are any Muslims listening to us, meme coin is haram for us. Just
Yeah.
FYI, meme coins is haram because
I actually had someone pitch me a halal
halal,
Bitcoin
halal
market.
meme coin really.
Yes. Yes. They
That
somehow
is
found,
the
and
wrong.
I was trying to understand it because I was like, how is this? I was trying to make sense of it, and somehow they got some kind of, I don't know, they went to some kind of mufti and they got some kind of explanation about how it was halal, and I was trying to rack my brains thinking this makes zero sense, but hey, to each their own.
Hey,
There's a lot
but
of
I would like to meet that mufti who issued that fatwa, because I want to ask him, Moli Saab, what do you understand about uh, meme tokens and tokenomics? Please, let's have a conversation. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's have a sermon.
I mean, a conversation would be a good starting point. I think the unfortunate thing is the team that I was speaking to, they didn't have a single Muslim on the team, and this is why I was so confused. I was like, "You guys are for." I understand the potential. There's a lot of Muslims who are into crypto. Unfortunately, a lot of the Muslim community that I have seen being exposed to crypto are unfortunately being influenced by a lot of Bitcoin maxis who have a very certain narrative. It's almost like propaganda, actually, that they're forcing. Actually, they're not nuanced in any way. They're not, they have no, like, it's almost like a very specific kind of picture. And I think this is why more of the Muslim community needs to educate themselves around what is happening in other ecosystems. And I would say a lot of us have a responsibility and a role to maybe even like, I don't give financial advice, but I see a lot of these, like, I was at ICNA with my husband last year, and I had so many people come up to me and say, because we didn't speak about price, we weren't speaking about Ethereum being the best. We were just talking about what is the potential of a lot of this technology? What are some of the use cases, right? One simple use case is like zakat. You pay so much of it every, there, and if you have crypto, like why isn't there a tool for zakat? Why isn't there a zakat calculator and a way for you to give crypto and donate in crypto and allocate in crypto? Like, there's so many great initiatives, and there's a lot of use cases for the Muslim community. I mean, given how many number of Muslims there should be more of an accessibility point, right? And most people had no idea, and they wanted to learn more, and they had just never heard the other perspectives. So that was an eye-opening experience for me and my husband, and he's a crypto founder too, but we realized how there's a big lack of accessibility in a lot of leaders who can talk about a lot of these things. And so when all they're hearing is Bitcoin, and the other information factor is they have money in Bitcoin, their crypto exchanges, like they'll have Coinbase as a wallet, or Binance or OKX. They will have Ripple, Bitcoin, and Solana, most likely. Those are the three names that I kept hearing from people, and people my dad's ages as well. Like, every now and then I'll get a message from my mom being like, should we be putting money into Solana or Ripple? I think Ripple's marketing actually has been fascinating, because I was at a family dinner. Everyone knew about Ripple, and I was like, this is fascinating, because none of you are crypto native, depending on how you define crypto native. But the fact that you all believe in Ripple and XRP specifically, like, that was fascinating for me. But yeah, I think it's because the mass media narrative for a lot of these specific tokens, it's so convincing for people who don't know enough and who have a very specific perspective on things, right?
No, a few days ago, I had the ex-government from Malaysia. His name is Raymond Siva, and our discussion was about Islamic finance being $1 trillion economy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was embarrassed to learn new things about Islamic finance, and I had no idea. With the sukos and with the other things, it's about $1 trillion, right? We don't hear it often. Perhaps I'm not in the right circles of Islamic finance personally, but the RWA opportunities in Islamic finance, it is mind blowing. It is just that people need to pay attention to these, which uh, can actually give you return perhaps in a safe way, but at least in a halal way. Because because the day and age we are in, uh, we are now mesmerized with influencers. uh, Instagram, influencers saying, "Hey, I gave my wallet to Claude and it turned it into $200,000, $20,000, and stuff." I actually had the Claude community head of Singapore, and the first question I asked him, "Are these clickbaits, or can Claude really do?" And he said it straight away. These are all clickbait content. So everybody who is watching, from one content creator to the audience, that if we do not give you clickbait, right? If we do not give you a massive title to open with, you are not going to watch the video. And please remember, whatever you watch it with a pinch of salt. Don't take everything on face value. Do a bit of research, and please get your hands dirty. You have to get your hands dirty. You have to understand the game. Sorry, go ahead, Michelle. You were making a point.
And I think the most important thing, don't invest money that you cannot afford to lose.
Yeah.
If you do not gamble, any investment is a gamble. So do not put your life savings, do not put your family's life savings into anything that you can't afford to lose. Like, that is the reality of any investment. That is something you should learn. A lot of my crypto learnings came from a lot of NFTs that I never sold, and I consider that my financial education now. But I think that's the other part, is like, if it's too good to be true, it is too good to be true. There is no such thing as quick, like, and maybe your risk appetite is higher, but I think that's just the basic thing. Like, I was speaking to a group of There's a group of entrepreneurs at NYU Abu Dhabi. They have a CSR program. So I was speaking to their staff, and I was telling them more about some of the tools and upcoming technologies. And I had someone come up to me and say, "I've got this much of money saved up. This is what I want to put into like this specific thing." And I said, "Listen, man, like I genuinely, if you want my advice, if these are your savings, do not touch them." And I will never give advice. And I just think you should know, like, if someone is really, especially if someone's pushing you to put money aggressively on a timeline, please be wary. Do your research. Do not, like, too many people learn the tough way. And I think there's so many scams happening, even in like the region, and it's so scary. I mean, there's a lot of crackdown happening, thankfully, from Dubai police and a bunch of different enforcement agencies that are working together, which I'm super grateful for, because I've seen so many instances of people losing their savings and getting scammed.
But somehow I'm still a big fan of FBI. I don't know if you know this. Do you know FBI launched a meme token?
Did they?
Okay, so this is supremely interesting. FBI launched a meme token, got in touch with market makers, marketing guys, community, and they told them upfront, this is a pump and dump. Okay, and the other guys from the side said, "Oh, sure, no problem. We are experts in pump and dump." So I don't know if you know, the guys from Godbit also was associated with this, and a lot of companies, market makers, everybody were behind the bars because of
Oh
this.
wow, that's fast. That's genius. Actually, that is so smart.
I know, and I think that's the best way for anybody to get to the bad guys, right? Because you know that, hey, how do I know who's actually messing around? Hey, I have a token. Do you want to pump it? Sure. What's the deal? Okay, we'll pump it. So FBI did that, and I think like for me, it was like a really smart thing. So we are 40 minutes down in the conversation. Let's talk about if somebody wants to get grants. For example, uh, I am going live every day. I'm talking about the future of money, and I want to apply for grants. What resources should I look at?
So
Or
if
whom
you're
should
a
I?
yeah, I mean, if you're a content creator, then I think the other thing that you really wanted to do, and one thing that you do well, is you talk about the results and traction you've had with some of your, so you show, and when you sent me the message, at first I was like, wait, is this a scam, or did his Telegram get hacked, or is this real? And when you send me a form, I was like, wait, is is he going to ask me to doubt? Until I saw the StreamYard link, I was not sure which direction this is going to go into. So I was like, all right, I think this can be real, and he seems real, and we've met in person, which was the other signal that, but in general, I don't respond to cold DMs, and I've sort of stopped that for security reasons. But I still, until the end, I was like, I'm not sure if, this is going to be real or not. But I think a couple of things that you did really well. You pointed credibility with other people who were on your show. You talked about, and you wrote numbers and traction. And you wrote about distribution, which is the most important thing. I think if you're a content creator that wants to get grants, first of all, you need to map out the ecosystem in terms of who are projects that have funding right now from a marketing and growth perspective, and who is actively deploying, who is working with creators. And there's a few different companies and organizations that always have marketing budgets, right? So what you want to do is get in front of the radar when it comes to first understand, how do they give out grants. In our instance, we have one team that's focused on marketing, growth, community, and ecosystem, sort of like one team essentially, and grants is the same team. So we do a lot of different things, but it's one function. And so everything sort of comes with, and we're a small team. Most teams are nuclear right now. So get in front of the marketing decision makers and understand or pay attention to what they're giving who they're giving funding to. Sometimes there are creator programs and there are creator grants, but a lot of times people will also directly reach out to people they've worked with who they think can effectively communicate the message, or who can effectively help get them to their goals. And every team right now has goals, right? This is what we need to get to. These are our metrics, or this is our end result and outcome. You probably will have to figure that out based on the content that you're seeing if you have not spoken to these people. But if you don't have access to people, look at what they're putting in. And then I think one of the ways that I think works is obviously to build your network out. But I think if there are programs like apply to them, but even if they aren't, create those opportunities yourself. Like one of the best creators that we worked with, so what they did was they created a video where they were talking about us, and we saw that it got traction, and then they said, hey, this worked, let's do a bigger series together, and this is what I can do. And usually, at least the way that our team works, is if it doesn't fit our budget, we just scope it down or we ask for a lower. So, depending on who you're working with, I think that's a way to do it. Some programs a bit more specific. So, for example, I know OKX has a content ambassador program right now. I saw a bunch of creators like Thana and Jesse post about that. So I think the other part would be, how can you become an ambassador for some of the programs? What can that look like? And then work with other creators too, because I think usually one thing that is super interesting is a lot of creators right now want to spread out, right? They don't always. Twitter is like one aspect, LinkedIn is another. So many people are looking for distribution right now. So there is marketing spend. You just have to figure out and communicate how your audience specifically will help these teams get to the kind of groups that they're looking for. If there's that audience overlap, to me, it's a no-brainer on why they wouldn't want to work with you. So, and why you wouldn't get a creator grant, essentially.
Thank you. And considering I'm building a product, perhaps in agentic AI, right? What is the way ahead?
So I think distribution and traction, if you're a builder yourself, talk about the results that you're getting, be your biggest ambassador for whatever you're building, because building is just the bare minimum right now. What that building leads to is the more important part. And then that's what you have to insert yourself into in terms of conversations. So you have to figure out what is your unique selling factor. You have to look at what is the interesting thing. And if there's distribution or numbers, really try to do some interesting results and talk about your learnings from that, right? That can be interesting. That will make people pay attention. So figure out your unique angle. Think about how that can create visibility. And then once you're ready with that, there's a lot of accelerator teams. There are programs running right now. Keep a lookout for programs that open applications. Get in touch with growth teams as well, or ecosystem teams, because they're always looking for builders and they always want to see traction. But I think those are a couple of ways that you can absolutely get in front of the teams and build your, widen your radar of people who know your product exists. And don't try one approach works for everybody, because every ecosystem has different needs and they're at a different stage. So I think mapping out your ecosystem of the people that you need to get in front of, who can help you get to those decisions and getting closer to the kind of support that you're looking for. Because the other thing is, maybe part of how you get started to even enter an ecosystem is not the funding, but it's the distribution effects. If you have a bit of traction and you can get some more support on that front, maybe that's a minimum ask, right? I think going into whichever ecosystem you're trying to get to with clarity on what you need from them is a good starting point as well.
Interesting. And are there any tools or websites that can actually tell us what really is happening in the grant space, like who's deploying, what's happening?
We do have a grant series on the Octant LinkedIn page that we do every week. It's called This Week in Grants. So we share the grants opportunities that we see in our ecosystem. Ethereum's Twitter and LinkedIn page, also they do roundups. I think in general, look at the teams that have funding, keep a notification on, and do the work yourself of looking at who is posting updates in real time. I still think the best way to get the fastest information is Twitter a lot of times, because you'll see tweets and you can get stuff. So just keep those on your radar. I think that's important. And then finally, I think LinkedIn is an underrated place to reach out to people, because Twitter DMs, most times I didn't even realize I had other DMs where I had a whole backlog, because a lot of times they're spam DMs and I'm not going to respond to that. But then there will be real people as well. And I try to keep a track on those, but a lot of times people can't see. So maybe you're in the others inbox, right? So I think making sure that you're able to get to Twitter. And then if you're in Dubai, there's such a great community of builders in Dubai. I think figuring out the Polygon offices there. I know there's quite a few ecosystem players too. So I think figuring out where those hubs are, who to meet and connect with. I think making the most of your geographical network is actually a really good starting point too, because a lot of times um, that's one of the best ways to connect with people, right? So, and especially in a hyper online space where everyone is sick of being sold to, building real connections and where you're at physically can make a big difference too.
And since you're in Long Island that you mentioned, do you think one should be in SF right now
Depends
for
on what
all
you're
the
trying to build. Depends on what you're trying to build. Like for crypto, I think New York is the crypto capital. And I think the just I think like I'm a New like I love New York. You know, I mean, as you can see, I love New York sports too. But I love
wait, wait. Before we, since you mentioned that, let's do this together. My mayor is Muslim.
my bagels are Jewish.
My Christian Dior cakes is
Knicks and
four.
although Knicks were in 1 and 5, so I should have worn my Knicks hat for this. But that was such an iconic line, and I
You know,
loved seeing it go
that is the
viral.
beauty of content, right? You can never figure out what is going to get viral. Like
Yes,
nobody can say that, wait, I have the formula to go viral. There is no way possible. I do not follow basketball, right? But I still know that Knicks won, and I still know this guy went viral because thank God I have a decent algorithm that brings out of the coolest thing that is happening around the world.
absolutely. And this is the beauty of content. Like I've been in the industry for I don't know, well over a decade. Um, and have worked on literally decoding virality. And I agree with you. There is no one formula that can work. And anyone who's telling you that is lying. There are things that work for some time that you can rinse and repeat up until a certain
like
point.
like your fellow countryman Kumar. 1 million followers, four freaking
Oh, wow.
reels.
Wow.
You really need to know who's the team behind this.
No,
Because
that's been
just in case if Kumar has done it on his own, he's wasted his life in accounting.
I need to check out who is Kumar? I actually don't know.
Are you kidding me?
No,
Are you?
seriously,
No, no.
who is
Don't say
Kumar?
that. You don't know Kumar the accountant?
No, I do not. This is news to me. Wait, I'm gonna look this up right now. Kumar the
Yeah,
account.
I'm going to show it to you right now. Okay, 1.2 million, six reels. Look at this.
Oh,
Okay.
yes, I do know him. Yes, I do know him. The Kumar method. Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The Kumar method. I didn't
This
realize that
guy.
was so
This guy.
on my timeline, and I was actually fascinated by yeah. I have like 80 people that I know following him too. It is
Yeah.
fascinating. And of
And
course he has a team. Of course he has a team. This is
he
not
needs
one
to have a
person.
team. Yeah. He
Of
needs to
course
have a
it's a
team.
team.
And I believe that the team, maybe his son, or sorry, his child, his kids, or his kids' friends, because uh otherwise, like, this is insane. Like, this kind of growth is never heard of, it's never seen, ever possible, and anybody who's tried that format has also blown up.
That's true. Well, you know what? I think a lot of people have tried certain formats, and sometimes it's timing, sometimes it is the algorithm, sometimes it's a mix of a few different things, sometimes it's what you're saying as well and how valuable it is, right? But there's no one formula that works, and there's no one formula that works for everybody. So I agree with you. I think virality is something you can hope for, but cannot always predict. And as marketers, you just know like there's too many things that you've probably tried out too to get to your numbers, and
Yeah,
a lot of things may not work.
yeah, absolutely. Because see, I come from the marketing space from BTL, which is below the line. So I started from there to ATL to then came in digital. So I've seen the entire journey
Spectrum.
of
Yeah.
of how marketing was done in malls, or from school or door to door. from now in India, you can actually, like IPL, which is the Indian Premier League, you can reach to the person who speaks a particular language in a particular city, right? The ads even on television now have become really specific, because otherwise they cannot compete with social media. There is no way they can compete with social media. And the way the world is moving, I think, in terms of virality, in fact, we should do another live stream and we decode these stuff of, these videos, that why did it go viral. I personally believe that it has to be relatable, or it has to be aspiring.
So
That's it.
I didn't create this formula. I don't even know where but I would break it down for my teams. It has to be informational, it has to be entertaining, or it has to be inspiring. Like it's got to be one of, like, if it's informational, it's purely educational, right? Like, so you need to feel like you're smarter if you're reading something, but the best content is the kind you would share in your group chats.
Yeah.
Like, if it's not something you'd be sharing with your friends, I mean, that's like the most basic version of what I consider, like, what is something you're going to be laughing at or are going to be like, what the hell, and share it in your group chat with your friends. Like, that to me is viral content. And
Yeah.
if it falls in one of those buckets, if it's not something you want to share, and you wouldn't be, like, a lot of times I think teams have this like almost dissonance, like they're creating content even they're not excited about. And I think that's usually really unfortunate. And I think if it's useful, it will get shared. If it is funny, it will get shared. So those are usually foolproof methods a lot of times.
Great. We have 4 more minutes. The last couple of things that I want to know from you before we end this conversation is, what are the questions that I haven't asked you? What do you think I missed out? Please tell me.
I think you asked me so many questions that I actually haven't even been asked before. So this is a great conversation. Thank you for hosting it. This was, yeah, they were really great questions. I'm
Thank you.
impressed.
I'm glad. Thank you. Now, my last question is, what are you going to say to somebody who's growing up in India, who is, young kids who are just passing out from school, colleges, and they have no idea what's going to hit them in terms of agentic AI, because most of the world thinks Chat GPT is AI. We are past that phase. What would you tell these kids?
I think the biggest privilege you have is internet access. And if you have that and you learn how to pick a platform and figure out how to use it well. Like, I love Twitter personally because it has opened up a whole world of opportunities for me long before I even lived here. And the the internet is how I even met my husband. Like, we were friends before we got married, but and that's the reason I live here, is because I got married, and he lives here. But I think people are so much more accessible than they were before. And I think because you have so much at your disposal, I think the way that careers are going to look in the future will change, but you can do so much more. There's no age. Like, you can be 15 years old, and if you think you have some really cool idea that works for your school, go try it out, go build it out, and try to test and build things. That's the best thing you can do for yourself, is like doing the thing. There's no advice somebody can give you that will change your life. Like, do the thing. I think, and even as we hire people, right? And as agentic stuff takes over the world or whatever, like, we're probably going to be living in a Transformers world in a couple of years, if we're to believe the internet and everything else. I'm sure we will get to that point. But I think people love seeing agency and what you can make happen. And I think you have so much of, like, just your immediate surrounding. You're getting feedback. You can try things out. And I think even your own classmates and friends that you have are going to be your best feedback loop a lot of times. And I think that is such a great thing. Like, there's so much you can do even in your class and test things out. And if you've graduated, like, put yourself out there, try things out, and talk about publicly building. Like, I love this guy, Farza. I've been following his journey for years at this point, right?
I, I
He
was I was there with my kids when he came to Dubai, and we spoke to him, and he did the entire cursor thing. We were
like
there.
build space. Like he's fantastic. He literally has just been talking about his journey and the results that he's produced, and a world of opportunities opened up to him, right? I think where you are geographically, this is probably the best time because you can talk about a lot of the things that you do and you can get to so many more people. And that's the beauty of the internet. You don't know if you could go viral, right? But I think consistently writing about the stuff that you're trying out and testing out, talk about what you know best. If it is your specific school, what are you seeing people use? What are some, like, talk about stuff, write about stuff. I think that's valuable. You might think what you have is not something people would be interested in, but you'll be surprised. There's a lot more people that will be interested. And I think that's one of the best things that you can do for yourself. And I think because so many people are breaking down things and also sharing their journey, you can learn so much more. And I think that in itself is really cool, but you have to put in the work. There is no substitute for hard work. If you think an agent is going to replace, and this is my problem with people who think agents will replace humans, they won't in the way that you think, because you still need someone to look at the quality and to be able to decide, is this good enough or not? Is this slop or not? Most of the content I see on my timeline is slop, right? Because it's slop, I am now averse to content. Like I see it's sloppy and I just like scroll through. I'm not reading that like whatever word article. Most people are feeling exhausted from that. So you still need human judgment. And I think that's what you really have to keep improving and building on. And then, you know, a lot of things are in a sieve, like right time, right place. You put in the effort, the world will give you back in multiple kinds. So I think that's the other thing, is belief that good things will happen.
Spoken exactly like your name, showing us the mashal. But before we end this, let's do this again. 3, 2, 1. Do it with me, my mayor. Go ahead.
All right, let's do it. My mayor's Muslim.
My mayor is Muslim. My pagan.
Bagels are Jewish. My Christian Dior. Nixon 4. Oh man, that's been one of my favorite things on the internet. That's been one of my favorite things on the internet.
Absolutely. So, thank you so much for the conversation, guys. Tomorrow we would getting over my friend Haynes from Hong Kong. She'll be talking about tokenized IPs. And next week, I'm really excited to get Dr. Ben on the live stream. For the guys who don't know Dr. Ben, he is called the father of decentralized AI. So we're going to have him. He's the guy who built Sophia. He's the founder of Singularity Net. I'm really looking forward to that conversation because it is going to be electric. Let's see where the conversation go. Especially when I think when two neurodivergents meet, the conversation could be electric.
Absolutely. That sounds amazing. Thank you for having me, Vibhav.
Thank you.
I'm grateful to everyone who watched this hour-long conversation and us just yapping.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you.